Shabbat Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Um, I'm sorry. I got hit with a horrible sinus headache. It was strong. So I'm feeling better now. Had to take something. So we're going to talk about Donald Trump and how people are not turning out for him anymore. He recently had a PGA tournament at his golf club and nobody came. And he also went to do a speech in Las Vegas. Only a very small crowd showed up. I believe it's a reflection of how people feel about Donald Trump. And he's losing people virtually every day. There's always new videos coming up talking about how they were once MAGA and they're leaving and they don't support Donald Trump anymore. But who cares about people that don't support him anymore? He's already in office. It's kind of like a day late and a buck short on being sorry. The damage is done. And, the people that are crying, I just don't feel bad for you. I was listening to, and this was last night, a video somebody put out, and it was all these MAGA people on there crying because they lost their job after Donald Trump took office. Well, yeah, he did mass firings. This man ain't about no jobs and creating jobs. He's about firing people. That's all he's done since he's been in office. So I don't know why you would think he was going to be the one that jobs were going to be booming. It's the opposite under Donald Trump. It's so bad. He refused to release the job report every week that we used to get for many years. We would always hear about jobs, how many people were hired, and it would come out weekly every Friday like clockwork. And he shut all of that down because he knows it looks bad and he's not creating jobs and he does not care about people working or people having employment out here. He could care less. And he shows you this over and over. Donald Trump ain't about hiring nobody. He's about firing people. So, hey, y'all did this and you're the only ones that should fix it. You should not be standing around talking about, oh, where are the black people? They're not out here protesting. That shouldn't even part from your lips. Y'all are the ones that did this. So now, Donald Trump is having these events and folks aren't showing up. And they're also predicting the stadium is going to be practically empty for the World Cup. It's a lot of people canceling their trip from overseas. And I'm dying to see how this uh, 250-year anniversary of America, I'm dying to see who's going to show up. I just got a feeling it is not going to be the turnout he's looking for. He think it's so big, he's trying to build an arch and have his name on passports and doing the most, right? But y'all, I really don't see a lot of people with all the inflation out here. I don't see a lot of people spending money for plane tickets and hotels and food and all that stuff just for this one day anniversary on the 4th of July. And I don't know. I'm just thinking a lot of people that might have gone a year ago before all this war and everything happened, they're less inclined to go now. But we shall see. Let me go ahead and share my screen. In fact, I have to tell you, this is the first time I ever heard of a PGA tournament and no one showed up for it. Usually people, that love golf will go to these tournaments, it always have crowds of people. This is by far the first time I've ever heard of any PGA happening and nobody shows up. Yeah. Thank you for the ones.
Largest absence of top players at a signature event so far this year. Rory McIlroy, Matt Fitzpatrick, Schaufel, Robert McIntyre, and Ludwig Adberg. Again, some of the top 15 players, they are not showing up to this tournament. So Donald Trump was in the Oval Office, and he was asked about the Live Golf Tournament, which is now shutting down. Should note that, right? In the next week as well, the Live Golf Tournament was supposed to take place at Donald Trump's Virginia golf course, which is called the Trump Wash. Donald Trump just gave an embarrassing speech in front of a very small crowd at the Villages in Florida. I'll show you an overhead view so you can see how small this crowd is. You see, they fit in that little tiny parking lot. The speech took place at a high school charter school. It's called the Villages High School Charter. And you can see it right here. I mean, when everybody was kind of packed into this gym, you see over here, they still closed half of the gym. So you can take a guess how many people were in there, but it was about half of the gym. And this is like the big event that Donald Trump's promoting in the state where he purports to live. And then the speech just got really bizarre. Donald Trump started grunting and moaning and making weird noises and going, I'm only going to show you a small portion of it, but he kept on doing this throughout the speech. Here, play this clip.
Come on, darling. The mother's screaming like crazy. Darling, I love you, darling. Mom, I can't do it.
And then he talked about how he really loves the YMCA. He thinks this is an important thing for the crowd to know, and that it's the gay national anthem that was number 5 32 years ago, he says. And this is an important thing that he wants the people of Florida to know. Here, play this clip.
She hates when I dance to what's sometimes referred to as the gay national anthem. She hates it. That song was number 5 32 years ago. And it went to number 1 32 years later. There's never been anything like it. Never hit number 1. It was number 5 32 years ago, and it went to number 1 for months during the last months of the camp. We love that song.
Then he says that he took a cognitive exam and says it was very difficult, and you have to multiply 99 times 9 and all of these numbers. And he wants the crowd to know about this cognitive exam that he's taken. He's taken it 3 times, he says, 3 exams. Here, play this clip.
And I said, well, I do well on things, so let's do it. And I got everyone right. And these are tough questions. They say, take a number, any number. Okay, I'll take 99, multiply times 9. Okay. Divide it by 3. Good. Add 4,293. That's good. Divide by 2. Subtract 93. Divide by 9. What is your answer? Now they go a little slower than that, but not much. I don't want to waste a lot of time. But there aren't a lot of people that get it right. I got it right. It was actually longer and more complex than that. But no, it's a tough test. So I took it. And then, everyone said, all right, good. He's smart. It's not really smart. It's like, what we are really. We have common sense. We're people with common sense.
A lot of the people who attended it's not a lot of people to begin with, but senior citizens. And this was supposed to be an event.
Donald Trump was booed today in his own hometown of New York at the US Open. The stadium, which was not even that full, was filled with people who booed the president. They did not want him there. They do not support him. They do not support his policies. And they made that clear. How embarrassing for him. This is not his first time getting booed at a major sporting event. It is amazing how he shows up at these events expecting that the crowd is going to be cheering for him. And instead, they boo him, and they boo him loudly in his own hometown. Even while the national anthem was playing, and he, of course, was saluting and doing his usual, he was still getting booed.
This was very shoot by the hip, kind of give a lot of general commentaries, especially on planes. He loved doing his press conference on planes. And sometimes that would get misinterpreted, or he was speaking from a very Argentinian, South American perspective. Leo has been a little more reserved. He's not been quiet. He certainly roared like Leo the lion, but has done so in a little bit more of a measured way. And I think that's very appreciated. It's interesting that this comment is being made, oh, stay in your lane, only comment on morality, just the church affairs. The Pope is never going to stay in a lane that somebody else puts him in. The Pope is the one who makes the lanes. And honestly, the rest of the world should get on board, because he is going to preach truth with a capital T and the gospel. And so, yes, they're very different. They are aligned, though, as all popes have been, aligned in preaching Jesus Christ and the truth. And that's going to ruffle feathers.
It is mind-boggling that he wants to continue this. And yet it's totally within character. So it's not terribly surprising. But when you say, as he said, as you just read, that the Pope shouldn't talk about war, that's like saying the Fed chair shouldn't talk about the economy. I mean, like he is like part of the mission of him guiding his flock is to a place of peace, right? Mm-hmm. Like that is at core. So to say the Pope shouldn't talk about war just, I think, misunderstands what the Pope's reason for being is.
Yeah. And I think to take it personal that a Pope, any Pope, would have an anti-war message further misses the mark. Like, this is what, like, every Pope has it. Yeah, that's what they do is they speak out against war. They speak out against innocent lives being lost.
Centuries ago, not so much, but recently.
Yes, modern day popes tend to be against war, tend to be against human suffering and things like that. So it's like, and I would just note this current Pope is from Chicago. Like, he's made it clear that he's not going to back down in a few, he said, I'm not scared of the Trump administration. Yeah. So it's like, do we really want to back and forth?
Let's start with that image, that AI image that the president put out. Why does it seem, or at least I'll just say, like, this feels different than other things that he has said and done that have been viewed by many as offensive to the faithful?
I don't know if you remember, on Palm Sunday, he did say that Jesus enters Jerusalem like a king with people cheering. And now look at me, they call me a king. So he made like a comparison to himself and Jesus, the beginning of Holy Week. And then we have this image. To me, it's unmistakably an image of Jesus. What he's wearing, the rays coming from heaven, the light emanating from his hands as Jesus, the healer. Mm-hmm. So why would you put yourself as a healer? It seems to me that Donald Trump in our country and in the world has been anything but a healer. He's been a divider. He's been a sower of injustice, I'm afraid. And so maybe he's trying to reform his image by wanting to follow more like Jesus. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it just landed really poorly.
Yeah, it sure seemed to. And what he is saying about Pope Leo and Pope Leo speaking gospel, and the message that the Pope has been sending out and speaking out against the war with Iran, his view and attempted to depict the Pope as, I'll just say, it seems on some level like any other politician. Mm-hmm. Does this speak to what many have seen has become evident over the years of Donald Trump being a politician, which is just that him having somewhat of a fundamental misunderstanding of faith?
I think so. I mean, to say the Pope is weak and terrible on foreign policy, or that he's not tough on crime, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's like saying a doctor is bad at carpentry. Like, it's not his job. The job of the Pope is to put forth the gospel, to try to have the message of Jesus out there of peace and solidarity and ministry to the poor. So why would you make this kind of critique about a religious man whose mission is totally different than creating foreign policy? So I think there's a misunderstanding, but I think anyone who critiques.
John, so Trump won Ohio 2016, 2020, 2024. That would pretty much be a Trump state, a red state. There's only been one Democratic senator in the 21st century, Sherrod Brown. He was ousted by a Republican in the last election. So, it seems pretty clear cut, but of course it isn't. That's why you're there. Are voters in Ohio sounding more and more like Senator John Kennedy, whom we just heard right there?
They don't have his Louisiana accent, Aaron, but they do have his complaint.
Trump's in deep trouble, as it appears the MAGA bubble is cracking. And the warning signs are not just coming from Democratic strategists or left-leaning cable news panels, but they're showing up in the data, and they're also showing up in midterm projections. Most importantly, though, they're showing up in places that Trump is supposed to have locked down. Most notably, as a recent study has shown, in Ohio.
People like this, places like this, are part of how Trump has changed America. Ohio changed from a competitive to a Trump red state because of the magic of his coalition here. But as we head into the midterms, the jobs he promised are not here. The revival in American manufacturing he promised is not here.
Chris Anderson is the Mahoning County Democratic chairman. His midterm bet? Enough Trump voters will be part of electing Ohio's first Democratic governor in 15 years and part of flipping a critical Senate seat from red to blue.
They got conned by a con man. You're the Democrat, so you're supposed to say that. What do you see that tells you that things are different?
Well, I mean, drive around Mahoning County. For 8 years, there were Trump signs on every.
The man who claims to be the greatest golfer among rich people just threw the biggest, emptiest tournament of his entire life. And honey, the bleachers did not lie. The 2026 Cadillac Championship is underway right now at Trump's Doral Golf Club in Miami. This was supposed to be Donald Trump's big comeback moment, his grand return to relevance on the PGA Tour stage. They put up a 15-foot golden statue of Trump at the entrance. I am not making this up, like a North Korean dictator greeting his subjects. And the subjects, they did not come. The grandstands around the 18th green, with actual PGA stars playing right in front of them, were completely, embarrassingly empty. But stay with me, because the golf story is actually the least of what's being exposed here. And what I'm about to tell you connects directly to 9 over 11 families, Saudi Arabia, and a quid pro quo that should make every American's blood pressure rise. Let's talk about the cheating first, because it is a perfect metaphor for everything this man does. Multiple golf pros, including people who have personally played rounds with Trump, confirm he plays like a 9 or 10 handicap. But Trump has registered himself as a 2.8, which would put him in the same category as Jack Nicklaus. His own caddies have been caught on camera with extra balls in their pockets, dropping them out of bunkers because Trump hates bunker shots. They literally have a nickname for him because he kicks his ball out of the rough so frequently. And when cameras are rolling and the rules actually apply, he has never once made the cut at Pebble Beach. Not once. He cheats at golf the same way he cheats at governing, the same way he cheats the American people. Now, here's the part that connects all the dots. LIV Golf, the Saudi-backed tour that lured top players away from the PGA with enormous checks, is now being shut down. And you need to understand why. The Saudis believed they had a deal with Trump, a security umbrella in exchange for investments in his properties and his orbit. Trump blew up that arrangement with his reckless foreign policy, and now the Saudis are pulling out of non-essential American investments. LIV Golf is done. And the golfers who abandoned their PGA contracts for that Saudi money, the PGA is telling them they are not welcome back. And while all of this is collapsing, 9 over 11 families who protested these Saudi-funded tournaments at Trump's clubs for years were told by this man that nobody really knows what happened on September 11th. Those families lost everything. Their loved ones ran back into buildings to save strangers. And Trump stood at his golf club, Saudis writing his checks, and said, "We have not gotten to the bottom of it yet." A man who cheats at golf cheats on accountability every single time. The receipts are real. The bleachers are empty, and the American people are paying attention. Share this. Register to vote, because unlike his scorecards, our ballots do not lie.
This was an absolute disaster for Donald Trump in Las Vegas. He just wrapped up an awful speech before a very small crowd. He arrived about 90 minutes late. He was clearly humiliated that they put him in a really small, tiny room before a teeny tiny crowd. Let me just show you what this room looked like before he arrived. Let's play this clip right here.
I scarce can take it in.
Then Donald Trump started speaking, and he didn't know what a corner store was. I think the purpose of this speech, I guess, was to talk about affordability, something that Donald Trump has woefully failed on and defrauded Americans, but he doesn't even know what a corner store is. Let's play this clip.
Probably about $4,000 or $5,000, and they wanted to raise your taxes. The great big beautiful bill also slashed taxes on millions of American small businesses, including restaurants, dry cleaners, corner stores. What is a corner store? I've never heard that term. I know what a corner store is, but I've never heard it described. A corner store. Who the hell wrote that, please? And more.
Then Donald Trump started ranting and raving to the crowd that he is not a senior citizen. And he was being serious. He thinks he's not a senior citizen because I'm protecting the seniors, but I'm not a senior. Here, play this clip.
In addition to no tax on Social Security, over 51 million seniors now pay. Seniors are loving me, and I love them. Of course, I'm not a senior, so I cater to the seniors, but I don't happen to be a senior myself. Thank you very much.
And then Donald Trump talked about that ridiculous stunt, that scam they pulled in front of the White House with the DoorDash grandma. And even Donald Trump was like, yeah, that really wasn't believable what we tried to pull on everybody. Here, play this clip.
Earlier this week at the White House, I met a wonderful woman named Sharon Simmons, a grandmother driving DoorDash to help support her husband's cancer treatment. She's got serious cancer. She's going to be okay, I think. Sharon delivered McDonald's to the Oval Office. It was a little bit of a, to be honest, it was a little tacky. They come up with these crazy ideas like McDonald's, although that was the biggest ever on Google. They say number one ever in the garbage truck. I mean, we do these things in politics. They're a little embarrassing. They're a little tiny embarrassing, but we do them and you win by landslides. It's one of the... So we got to keep doing them. No, we got to knock on the Oval Office door. This does not happen. That's the first maybe in the history of the Oval Office. And it was a very beautiful woman standing there with 2 big bags of McDonald's hamburgers. And I say, is this really believable? But the point of it was she made...
Yeah, even Donald Trump admits that scam failed. Remember, we did the expo.
Donald Trump flew into Zurich. Nobody met him. Donald Trump flew into Davos. Nobody met him. He's used to crowds everywhere that he goes. Even protesters, they weren't there. They just ignored him. He went to the World Economic Forum and people were polite. They clapped at the right times. They laughed at the stupid jokes, but there was none of the fanfare, none of the cheering that Donald Trump is used to. And now we see that Donald Trump is backing off of Greenland's threats, tariff threats. We see that Donald Trump is backing off of a lot of things. Donald Trump loves to be the center of the attention. And when everybody ignores him, instead of actually complimenting him, pleasing him, caving into him, Donald Trump backs off. Donald Trump doesn't like to not be liked. Now, in the United States, he doesn't care that it comes from Democrats because he fully in his mind believes that Democrats are evil people. But when it's billionaires and other leaders of the world, Donald Trump craves their praise. Donald Trump craves them approving of him. He so badly wants to be seen as one of the end people. For years, he wanted to be seen as something other than a bankrupt billionaire who was never a billionaire and actually be accepted into that billionaires club. That's why for decades before he was ever worth billions of dollars, he said he was worth billions of dollars. It's because he wanted to be a billionaire. He wanted to be in this exclusive club that he was never invited into. So when that club turned its back on him in Switzerland in the last couple days, Donald Trump, he reversed course because he doesn't want to be kicked out of a club that he was never part of.
Well, I think America and Donald Trump better get used to getting ignored. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? You are at the White House. They have professional chefs in the kitchen, and you want McDonald's. I mean, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. He got a whole kitchen staff, and he wants McDonald's. Can't make it up. So, y'all, I think Donald Trump better get used to smaller crowds, if you know what I mean. And I think America better get used to the fact that people are not going to put you up on a pedestal anymore. Those days are completely gone, and it's not coming back. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your support. And be on the lookout for my lives. Shalom, family.